The day my mother sold our house out from under me, I was at work, organizing files and dreaming about the garden I planned to plant that spring. I had no idea my entire world was about to implode. My name is Peyton, and I learned the hard way that some people will sacrifice anything for their addiction, even their own daughter's future. "Peyton, there's an urgent call for you on line 2, Sarah from reception called out. The tremor in her voice should have been my first warning. It was Rachel, our neighbor of 15 years. "Honey, you need to come home right now. Your mother, she's selling the house. The new owners are here with a moving truck." I nearly dropped the phone. "What? That's impossible. She can't." "She already did. The papers are signed. They're clearing everything out as we speak." As I drove away that day, I watched our house disappear in my rearview mirror. But I wasn't saying goodbye. I was making a promise. Victoria had no idea what she'd just set in motion, but she would. Oh, she would. "You can't keep working yourself to death like this," Ellie said, sliding a coffee across my desk. "2 jobs is already insane. Now you want to add day trading." I gulped the coffee, desperately needed after my night shift at the bar. "I need to make this happen faster. The housing market's only getting worse. It's been 6 months. You've already saved more than most people do in years." Before I could respond, Miguel from accounting stopped by my cubicle. He'd started dropping by more frequently lately, always with some excuse about expense reports. "Ladies," he said, leaning against my desk. I couldn't help but overhear. "You're interested in trading?" I minimized the investment website I'd been studying. "Just looking into some options." "Options trading? That's advanced stuff." He raised an eyebrow, impressed. "I actually teach a finance workshop on weekends. You should come." "I don't have weekends anymore," I said, checking my phone. 2 hours until my shift at the bar. "Make time," Miguel insisted. "You're working so hard to earn money. You should learn how to make it work for you." Ellie shot me a meaningful look. "He's right, Pay, and it wouldn't kill you to do something besides work." I was about to decline when I overheard 2 women walking past my cubicle. "That gorgeous Victorian on Maple Street. Heard it's going back on the market soon. The owners are divorcing." My heart stopped. That was my house. "I'll be there," I told Miguel. "Saturday morning?" His face lit up. 9 a.m. I'll text you the address." After they left, I pulled up the real estate website I'd been monitoring obsessively. Nothing listed yet, but if my house was going back on the market. "Earth to Peyton." Ellie waved her hand in front of my face. "You got that look again." "What look?" "The I'm plotting something slightly illegal look." I grabbed her arm. "I need your help. Remember how you said your cousin works at that investment firm?" "The one that handles private wealth management?" "Yeah, but can you get me a meeting?" She sighed. "Pay, they don't take clients without significant assets." "Then I'll get significant assets. Please, Elle, this might be my only chance." 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Miguel's living room with 5 other students, learning about market analysis. I hadn't expected him to be such a good teacher, but he had a way of making complex concepts click. "The key is to remove emotion from your decisions," he explained. "Markets run on fear and greed. Success comes from rising above both." I thought about Victoria, probably burning through her casino credits right now. "What about revenge? What does that do to the market?" Miguel gave me a curious look. "Revenge is the most expensive emotion of all, usually costs more than it pays." After class, he caught me before I could leave. "Hey, want to grab coffee? I've got some resources that might help with what you're trying to do." "Rain check?" "I've got work." "The bar again?" When I nodded, he frowned. "You know, with your financial instincts, you could be doing something much more lucrative." "I'm working on it." That night at the bar, I served drinks while mentally calculating compound interest rates. A drunk patron grabbed my wrist as I delivered his bourbon. "Hey, beautiful, when do you get off?" I pulled away, remembering Victoria's words. "You'll land on your feet, darling. You always do." "Sorry," I said coldly. "I'm busy building an empire." The next morning, I met with Ellie's cousin's firm. The wealth manager, David, looked skeptically at my proposal. You want to create a shell company for your investments? That's unusual for someone your age. I have my reasons. And legitimate funds to invest? I placed my bank statements on his desk. 6 months of savings from 2 jobs, plus some strategic day trading. I'm a quick study. He reviewed the numbers, eyebrows rising. Impressive start, but why the need for privacy? Let's just say I'd prefer certain family members don't track my success. I ran 3 red lights getting home. By the time I pulled into my driveway, half the contents of our house were strewn across the front lawn like casualties of war. Strange men carried out my grandmother's antique dresser, while others hauled away the dining room set where I'd done my homework every day since 3rd grade. "Mom!" I screamed, rushing past the movers. "Mom, what have you done?" After I left the meeting, Ellie called. "Well, how'd it go?" "I'm in. They're setting up the accounts under my new business name." "Which is?" "Phoenix Rising Investments." She laughed. Subtle. It felt appropriate. I checked my watch. Time for Miguel's next workshop. "Hey, did you know the average return on real estate investments in our area is 12% annually?" "Oh God, he's turned you into a finance nerd. Knowledge is power, Elle. And power?" I thought about Victoria's dismissive wave as she walked away that day. Power is exactly what I need right now. Just be careful, Pay. Revenge is expensive, I know, but so is losing everything you love. And I'm done being the one who pays that price. Ms. Phoenix Rising, your portfolio's performance has been remarkable, Luis said, adjusting his tie as he reviewed my accounts. Though I must admit, I've never had a client insist on conducting all business through video calls before. I adjusted my wig and glasses, my standard disguise for these meetings. Privacy is paramount in my business, Mr. Anderson. Indeed. And now you're interested in real estate. One property in particular. I sent him the listing. The Victorian on Maple Street. He clicked through the photos. Ah, yes, beautiful home. Just listed yesterday. But there's already significant interest. I'll pay cash, above asking price. Luis's eyebrows shot up. That's aggressive. I know what I want. After the call, I pulled off the wig and stared at my reflection. 9 months of working myself to exhaustion, of studying investment strategies until my eyes burned, of transforming myself into someone Victoria would never recognize. It was all about to pay off. My phone buzzed. Miguel. "Hey," he said when I answered. "Missed you at the workshop today." "Sorry, had a business meeting." "Must be important. You haven't missed a Saturday in months." I smiled, remembering how his workshops had given me the foundation for everything I'd accomplished. "Actually, I'm about to make an offer on a house." "That's amazing. We should celebrate. Dinner tonight?" My heart skipped. "I can't. Not until this deal is done. But after—" "I'll hold you to that," he said softly. Later that day, I met Ellie at our favorite coffee shop. She slid into the booth with 2 lattes and a concerned expression. "Rachel called me," she said. "She ran into Victoria at the grocery store." My hands tightened around my cup. "And?" "She's not doing well. Lost everything at the casino. She's been staying at shelters." "Good." "Pay." "Don't. She made her choices." Ellie leaned forward. "I know she hurt you. But this revenge thing, creating a whole fake identity, buying your house back just to what? Rub it in her face? It's not about revenge anymore. It's about justice. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're letting her destroy you all over again." My phone rang. Luis. I answered on speaker. "Ms. Phoenix, I have good news. They've accepted your offer." Ellie's eyes widened as I maintained my fake accent. "Excellent. When can we close?" "The sellers are motivated. We could have keys in your hands by next week." After hanging up, I looked at Ellie triumphantly. "See? Everything's falling into place. And what happens when Victoria finds out who really bought the house? She won't. Not until I want her to." The next week passed in a blur of paperwork and preparations. I met Luis at his office to sign the final documents. this time in person, but still in disguise. "Congratulations," he said, handing me the keys. "The house is yours." I turned them over in my palm, remembering how Victoria had taken my key that day, without a second thought. As I left the office, my phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. "Did you get it?" "Yes, I'm a homeowner." "Dinner time?" I smiled despite myself. "Soon, I promise." That evening, I stood on the sidewalk outside my house again, watching the sunset paint the Victorian trim in shades of gold. A car slowed as it passed, and I tensed, but it wasn't Victoria. Rachel walked up behind me. "I thought I'd find you here." "How did you know?" Victoria stood in our gutted living room, clutching her designer purse like a life preserver. Her perfectly manicured nails and fresh highlights told me exactly where the last of our money had gone. "Peyton, darling, I was going to call you, but..." "But what? But you were too busy selling my home. Where am I supposed to live?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Don't be dramatic. You're 28, far too old to still be living at home anyway. This is for the best. Give me some credit. I've known you since you were 13. She squeezed my shoulder. "Your father would be proud, you know, building all this on your own." "Would he? Sometimes I think he'd be ashamed of what I'm becoming." "You're becoming someone who refuses to be victimized. Nothing shameful about that." She paused. "But honey, at some point you'll have to decide if getting even is worth losing yourself." I pulled out my new keys. "Want to see inside?" The house was empty, echoing with memories. I walked through each room, touching the walls, the door frames, the window seats. Everything was exactly as I remembered, yet completely different. My phone buzzed again, a text from Ellie. "Rachel told me Victoria's been asking around about cheap rooms for rent. She's desperate." I stood in what used to be my bedroom, looking out at the street where I'd learned to ride my bike, where Dad had taught me to drive, where Victoria had walked away without looking back. "Perfect timing," I texted back, because that's exactly what I'd been waiting for, the moment when Victoria would have nowhere else to go. And then, only then, would I open my door to her, let her see what it feels like to be at someone else's mercy. Moving back into my childhood home felt like stepping into a funhouse mirror version of my life. Everything was familiar, but slightly wrong. I'd furnished it differently, painted the walls new colors, trying to make it feel like it belonged to Phoenix Rising instead of Peyton. The doorbell rang as I was unpacking boxes in the kitchen. Miguel stood on the porch with takeout bags. "Surprise," he said, grinning. "Figured you could use dinner after moving day." I glanced down at my paint-stained clothes. "I'm a mess." "You're perfect." He held up the bags. "I brought Thai and wine." We sat on moving boxes in the living room, eating pad Thai straight from the containers. Miguel looked around appreciatively. "This place is incredible, but why such a big house for one person?" I took a long sip of wine. "I like having space." "Space for what?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Rachel's name flashed on the screen. "Sorry, I need to take this." I stepped into the hallway. "Rachel?" "She's back in town," Rachel said without preamble. "Victoria, I just saw her at the shelter where I volunteer." My hand tightened on the phone. "How does she look?" "Rough. She asked about you." "What did you tell her?" "That I hadn't seen you in months, but Peyton..." Rachel hesitated. "She's hitting rock bottom, hard." "Good. Is it? Because you don't sound happy about it." I glanced back at Miguel, who was pretending not to listen while examining my bookshelf. "I have to go." When I returned, Miguel held up a familiar book. "The Art of War? Interesting choice." "Know your enemy," I said automatically, then winced. He set the book down carefully. "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Okay." He topped off my wine. "Then let's talk about why you've been avoiding having dinner with me for months." I choked on my drink. "I haven't been..." "You have. And I get it. You're focused on your goals. But life's happening while you're planning your next move." A car drove by outside, its headlights sweeping across the walls. I jumped, half expecting to see Victoria. Miguel noticed. You seem on edge. Are you in some kind of trouble? No, I set down my wine. It's complicated. It always is. He moved closer. But you don't have to handle complicated alone. His hand found mine, and for a moment, I let myself imagine a different kind of life. One where I wasn't consumed by this elaborate revenge plot, where I could just be a woman having dinner with a man who made her laugh. The moment shattered when my phone buzzed with a text from Ellie. Victoria asked about renting a room in the neighborhood. People are pointing her toward your house. Apparently it's known that Phoenix Rising rents rooms. I should probably call it tonight, I told Miguel, pulling my hand away. Early meeting tomorrow. He looked disappointed but didn't push. Thanks for finally having dinner with me, even if it was just takeout on boxes. After he left, I walked through the house, checking every lock twice. In my old bedroom, now my home office, I pulled up the security camera feeds I'd installed. The street was empty, but I knew it was only a matter of time. My phone rang again. Ellie. For the best? My voice cracked. This house is all we have left of Dad. How could you? A mover brushed past us with my bookshelf. Ma'am, where do you want these boxes? Just put everything by the curb, Victoria said. My daughter will handle it. That's when I saw the gambling receipts poking out of her purse. The same addiction that had destroyed my father was now taking our last connection to him. How much? I demanded. What? How much did you get for the house? You're really going through with this? She asked. You know I am. And what happens when she shows up? When she's standing on your doorstep with nowhere else to go? I watched another car pass on the security feed. Then I'll finally have what I want. Will you? Because from where I'm standing, you're trapped in this house waiting for your mother to become homeless enough to beg you for help. That's not freedom pay. That's a prison of your own making. You don't understand. I understand that Miguel left here looking like a kicked puppy. I understand that you're pushing away everyone who cares about you to make room for this revenge fantasy. I pressed my forehead against the cool window glass. It's not a fantasy. It's justice. Is it? Because it looks like you're becoming exactly what you hate. Someone who uses people's desperation against them. The words hit harder than I expected. In the reflection of the window, I caught a glimpse of myself, and for a second, just a second, I saw Victoria's calculating expression on my face. I have to go, I said, hanging up. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across my perfectly manicured lawn. Somewhere out there, Victoria was running out of options, running out of places to go. Soon she'd find her way here, to the one house on Maple Street rumored to rent rooms to desperate people. And I'd be waiting. Just like she taught me, sometimes you have to sacrifice everything for what you want, even if what you want is revenge. The knock came at dusk, 3 days later. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I saw her through the security camera feed on my phone. Victoria, standing on my porch, clutching a worn designer bag that had seen better days. I adjusted my wig, checked my makeup, and opened the door. Can I help you? She didn't recognize me. Of course she didn't. The blonde wig, colored contacts, and carefully applied makeup had transformed me into a stranger. I heard you might have rooms for rent. Her voice was smaller than I remembered, her shoulders hunched against the cold. Who told you that? The shelter downtown, and some neighbors. She tried to smile, but it wavered. I can pay. Not much, but... Come in. I stepped aside, watching her enter the house she'd sold out from under me. Would you like some coffee? Her hands shook as she accepted the mug. We sat at the kitchen table, new, modern, nothing like the one where we'd eaten countless family dinners. I used to live here, you know, she said, looking around. Before what? Before I made a terrible mistake. She set down her coffee. My daughter, she grew up in this house. Really, I kept my voice neutral. Where is she now? I don't know. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I lost her, lost everything. How? Gambling. It's a disease, really. I sold this house to pay my debts, but then... She gestured helplessly. Well, you can see how that turned out. I leaned back, studying her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by threadbare department store finds. Her perfectly manicured nails were chipped, her highlighted hair showing grey roots. And your daughter? She didn't help you? Victoria laughed bitterly. Why would she? I threw her out. Didn't even give her time to pack properly. She traced the wood grain of the table. I keep hoping she'll forgive me, but I wouldn't forgive me either. The coffee turned sour in my stomach. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to be arrogant, entitled, not sitting here drowning in regret. My phone buzzed. Miguel. Miss you at the workshop. Dinner tonight. I have a spare room upstairs, I heard myself saying. $300 a month includes utilities. Victoria's head snapped up. Really? But that's so reasonable. Take it or leave it. I'll take it. Thank you, Ms. Phoenix, I said. You can move in tomorrow. After she left, I called Ellie in a panic. What have I done? She's going to be living here. Actually living here. Isn't that what you wanted? I paced the kitchen. I don't know what I wanted anymore. She seems so different. People change when they hit bottom, Ellie said. Question is, are you going to kick her while she's down? Before I could answer, another knock came at the door. Miguel stood there with takeout again. If you won't come to dinner, dinner comes to you, he said, then noticed my appearance. Nice wig. Costume party. I touched my head, horrified. I'd forgotten to change back. I can explain. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Enough to cover my debts. And a little extra for a fresh start. I grabbed her arm. You mean enough for the casino? How long before you blow through that too? You don't understand. No, you don't understand. This isn't just your house to sell. This was our home. My home. Rachel appeared in the doorway, tears in her eyes. Peyton, honey, you can stay with me tonight. Can you? Because I've been patient, Peyton. Really patient. But there's clearly something going on here. I pulled him inside, checking the street for Victoria before closing the door. You have to promise not to tell anyone. He set down the food. I'm listening. I told him everything. Victoria, the house, my alter ego. By the time I finished, the takeout was cold, and Miguel was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. So your mother, who doesn't recognize you in a wig, is moving in tomorrow? Yes. And your plan is, what? Torture her with kindness until she breaks? Put that way, it sounded ridiculous. I don't know anymore. He ran a hand through his hair. Pay, I say this with love, but this is insane. You're setting yourself up for disaster. I can't back out now. Actually, you can. That's the beauty of being the landlord. He took my hand. But if you're determined to do this, at least let me help. Let someone be on your side. I looked at our joined hands, then at the security feed showing Victoria's car pulling away. Tomorrow, I said. She moves in tomorrow and then... And then you'll what? Keep wearing a disguise in your own house. Live a double life indefinitely. Until she realizes what she did. Until she feels what I felt. Miguel squeezed my hand. And what if what you feel changes first? I pulled away, unable to answer, because the truth was, it already had. Seeing Victoria broken had cracked something in my carefully constructed plan, but it was too late to stop now. Tomorrow my mother would move back into the house she'd sold away, and I would finally have my revenge. Wouldn't I? Living with Victoria was like performing in a twisted play where I was the only one who knew the script. Every morning, I'd put on my disguise and pretend to be Ms. Phoenix, the stern but fair landlord, while my mother tiptoed around the house like a ghost of her former self. I made coffee, Victoria said one morning, pushing a mug across the kitchen counter. As a thank you, for everything. I accepted it warily. You don't need to thank me. I do. You don't know what it means to be back in this house. She touched the wall gently. Even with all the changes, it still feels like home. The coffee scalded my tongue. Once, she would have remembered I liked it with cream. Tell me about your daughter, I heard myself say. Victoria's face crumpled. Peyton, is everything I'm not. Strong, responsible, kind. She pulled something from her pocket, a worn photograph. This was her favorite spot. I recognized the picture. Me at 16, curled up in the window seat with a book. Dad had taken it months before his heart attack. You must miss her, I said, my disguised voice nearly cracking. Every day. I keep hoping she'll call, but... Victoria's phone buzzed. She checked it, shoulders slumping. Excuse me, I need to take this. Through the security cameras, I watched her step onto the porch. Her voice drifted through the window. Yes, I understand I'm behind on payments. No, please don't close my account. I'm trying to reach my daughter. The front door opened, and Miguel walked in carrying grocery bags. He'd started coming over more often, claiming he was checking on me. But I suspected he was really making sure I didn't completely lose myself in this charade. Your mother's crying on the porch, he said quietly. She's always crying lately. Pay. He set down the bags. How long are you going to do this? Until what? Until she's suffered enough. Who decides when that is? Before I could answer, Victoria came back inside, hastily wiping her eyes. She stopped short at seeing Miguel. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had company. This is Miguel, I said. My friend. Boyfriend, he corrected, giving me a pointed look. Victoria smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in weeks. How wonderful. Will you stay for dinner? I found an old recipe box in the kitchen yesterday. There's this amazing lasagna my daughter used to love. I froze. That recipe box had been my grandmother's. I'd been looking for it since moving back in. Actually, Miguel said smoothly, we have dinner plans. But another time. I barely heard her. I was too focused on memorizing every detail of our house. The chip in the kitchen door frame from when I learned to ride my skateboard indoors, the height marks penciled on the wall, the window seat where I'd read hundreds of books. You have 2 hours to clear your things, the new owner said, not unkindly. Anything left goes to the dump. 2 hours. 15 years of memories reduced to 2 hours. After Victoria retreated upstairs, he turned to me. She found your grandmother's recipes, and you're still convinced she's the same person who threw you out. Stop. No, you stop. Look at what this is doing to you, to her, to us. Us? Yes, us. Remember me? The guy who's been trying to date you for months while you're busy playing dress-up and plotting revenge. I sank into a kitchen chair. I never meant to hurt you. I know, but you are. He knelt beside me. The woman upstairs is broken, Pay, and this game you're playing, it's breaking you too. A crash from upstairs interrupted us. We rushed up to find Victoria in my old room, now my office, staring at a fallen picture frame. I'm so sorry, she stammered. I was just... This room... She picked up the frame, then stopped. The photo showed me, the real me, at my college graduation. I'd forgotten I'd left it out. This is your daughter, Victoria whispered. You know Peyton. I bought the house from her, I improvised. She needed money for investments. Victoria traced my face in the photo. She's doing well. She's happy. I thought about the months I'd spent working 2 jobs, studying investments, creating this elaborate scheme. She's surviving. Good, that's good. Victoria set down the photo carefully. I need some air. After she left, Miguel picked up the photograph. You know what I see in this picture? Someone who was proud of her accomplishments. Someone who didn't need revenge to prove her worth. I can't stop now. She's so close to breaking. Breaking? Pay, look around. She's already broken. The question is, are you going to let this break you too? He left me standing there, staring at my graduation photo while downstairs, Victoria's muffled sobs echoed through the security feed. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? Then why did victory taste so much like defeat? The truth came out on a Tuesday, in the most mundane way possible. I was making dinner, still in my phoenix disguise, when Victoria walked into the kitchen holding my father's old coffee mug. "I found this in the back of the cupboard," she said. "It still has the chip where Peyton dropped it learning to wash dishes." "Oh?" My hand shook as I chopped vegetables. "Funny thing is, I packed this mug myself when we moved out. I distinctly remember wrapping it in newspaper." She set it on the counter with deliberate care. "So how did it end up here?" The knife stilled. "Perhaps the new owners. And these vegetables." She gestured to my cutting board. "You're dicing them exactly the way I taught Peyton, exactly the same size." I kept chopping, faster now. Many people cut vegetables this way. I turned to Victoria, who was already heading for the door. "Where are you going?" "I have an appointment," she said, checking her watch. "You'll land on your feet, darling. You always do." And just like that, she was gone. No goodbye, no apology, no backward glance. Rachel helped me salvage what I could: photo albums, important documents, some clothes. We worked in silence, both knowing this was the end of an era. As I packed the last box into my car, I noticed the "for sale" sign had already been marked "sold." Below it, a business card was stuck in the grass. I picked it up, reading the name of the real estate company that had facilitated this nightmare. Something shifted inside me then. A seed of determination took root where my heart had been shattered. "I'm going to get it back," I whispered. Rachel touched my shoulder. "What was that, honey?" I straightened up, slipping the card into my pocket. "I'm going to get my house back. I don't care how long it takes or what I have to do. This isn't over." "Peyton..." "No, listen to me. She thinks she can just throw away everything we built here, everything Dad worked for. Well, she's wrong. I'm going to find a way to buy this house back. And when I do..." I took a deep breath, surprised by the steel in my voice. "When I do, she'll learn what it feels like to have everything taken away. And your hands..." Her voice cracked. "I've been staring at them for weeks, knowing they reminded me of something. They're my daughter's hands." The knife clattered to the counter. "Victoria, take off the wig, Peyton." My fingers trembled as I removed the wig and contacts. Victoria staggered back like I'd struck her. "How long?" she whispered. "How long have you been playing this game?" "Game?" I laughed harshly. "You think this is a game? You sold our home, Dad's home, for gambling money. You left me with nothing." "So this was revenge? Letting me live here, watching me break down, all while pretending to be someone else? Now you know how it feels to be at someone else's mercy." She sank into a kitchen chair. "I deserve that, all of it. But Peyton, what you've done, this elaborate deception, don't you dare judge me." I slammed my hand on the counter. "You have no right..." "I'm not judging. I'm terrified." She looked up, tears streaming. "Terrified that I hurt you so badly you'd do something like this. That I turned my beautiful, kind daughter into someone who could plot revenge for months. I am not. You're exactly like me." The words hit like a slap. Calculating, patient, willing to sacrifice anything for your goal. I used to be so proud of how much you were like me. Now it horrifies me. My legs gave out. I gripped the counter for support. "I'm nothing like you." "No, I gambled away our future for a chance at quick money. You gambled away your present for a chance at revenge." The front door opened. Miguel's voice called out, "Pay? Your car's still here, but you're not answering your phone." He stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. My removed disguise, Victoria's tears, the heavy silence. "It's over," I said quietly. He moved to my side. "Are you okay?" Victoria watched us with dawning recognition. "You knew about all of this?" "I tried to talk her out of it," he said, "but Peyton's stubborn when she thinks she's right. Like mother, like daughter," Victoria murmured. I pushed away from the counter. "You need to leave. Peyton, both of you, please, I can't." Miguel touched my shoulder. "Pay, running away won't fix this." "Fix what?" I gestured wildly. "The fact that I spent months planning the perfect revenge, only to realize I'm turning into the person I hate most. that I wasted all this time becoming exactly what she made me. I didn't make you anything, Victoria said softly. You chose this, just like I chose gambling over you. We both have to live with our choices. She stood, gathering her few belongings. At the kitchen door, she paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just for selling the house, but for everything before that. For teaching you that love means control. That winning means making others lose. She wiped her eyes. You're better than that. Better than me. Where will you go? Miguel asked. There's a recovery program. I've been carrying their card for weeks. She pulled it from her pocket. Maybe it's time. After she left, Miguel held me while I shook apart. I don't know who I am anymore, I whispered. You're Peyton, the woman who built herself up from nothing, who's smart and driven and capable of incredible things. He kissed my temple. The question is, what will you build next? Through the window, I watched Victoria walk away. But this time she looked back, and this time I was the one who had to decide. Was I strong enough to let go of revenge? To build something new from the ashes of what we'd both destroyed? The coffee mug sat on the counter, its familiar chip a reminder of simpler times, of a girl who once dropped dishes while learning to care for a home. Maybe it was time to learn something new. The real estate office felt smaller than I remembered. Luis looked between Victoria and me, confusion clear on his face. You want to do what exactly? Convert the house into a recovery center, I said, squeezing Miguel's hand under the table. A place for women rebuilding their lives after addiction. Victoria sat quietly beside Rachel, who'd agreed to help run the program. After that night in the kitchen, she'd actually gone to rehab. 90 days sober now. The zoning laws, Luis began, are already handled, I interrupted. Rachel's organization has the permits. And the funding. Phoenix Rising Investments will provide initial capital. I smiled at Victoria. With some expert advice on what recovering addicts actually need. Luis shuffled his papers. You understand this is unusual? Story of my life, I said. After signing the papers, we stood outside the office. Victoria touched my arm hesitantly. You don't have to do this, she said. The house is yours. You earned it. That's why I can choose what to do with it. I met her eyes. Besides, Phoenix Rising needs a new project. Trading stocks is getting boring. Rachel hugged me. Your father would be so proud. Of turning his home into a rehab center. Of turning pain into purpose. Miguel wrapped an arm around my waist. Speaking of purpose, we're going to be late for the workshop. You're still teaching those? Victoria asked him. Actually, Peyton's teaching today. Financial independence for women starting over. I'd fought him on it initially, but he'd insisted my story could help others. Just maybe not the revenge part. Before you go, Victoria said, I have something for you. She pulled out a familiar recipe box. I thought maybe, for the house, some of the women might want to learn to cook. I ran my fingers over the worn edges, remembering countless nights in our kitchen. Only if you'll teach them Grandma's lasagna. Me? You're the only one who knows the secret ingredient. Her eyes welled up. Peyton, I don't deserve... This isn't about deserving. It's about choosing to be better than we were yesterday. At the workshop that afternoon, I stood before a room of women, my mother among them. No wig, no contacts, no mask of revenge to hide behind. Many of you know me as a success story, I began. But success isn't just about making money. Sometimes it's about losing everything and finding out who you really are. Victoria smiled encouragingly from the back row. Today, we're going to talk about investment strategies, but first I want to tell you about two women who lost their way. One to gambling, one to revenge, and how they both found something better than winning. What's that? Someone asked. Peace, I said, the kind that comes from building instead of breaking. That evening we gathered at the house, soon to be Hope House, for one last family dinner. Ellie brought wine, Rachel made salad, and Victoria taught Miguel the secret to perfect garlic bread. I stood in the doorway watching them, remembering all the nights I'd spent here alone, plotting revenge. The security cameras were gone now, along with the elaborate disguises and carefully constructed lies. "Penny for your thoughts?" Miguel asked, pulling me close. "Just thinking about choices. Roads not taken. Regrets?" I watched Victoria laugh at something Ellie said, her AA chip catching the light as she gestured. "No, just gratitude." "For what?" "For failing at revenge, for becoming something better than my pain." He kissed my temple. "Speaking of becoming something better, that dinner you promised me months ago." "What about it? I was thinking maybe we could make it official, like ring shopping official." My heart skipped. Before I could answer, Victoria called from the kitchen. "Peyton, come show me where you want these cabinets reorganized for the new residents." "Coming, Mom." Miguel raised an eyebrow. "Mom?" "We're working on it." I squeezed his hand. "And yes." "Yes?" "To dinner, to rings, to everything." In the kitchen, surrounded by the people I loved, I picked up my father's chipped coffee mug. Once, it had been a symbol of everything I'd lost. Now, it would be the first item in Hope House's kitchen, reminding future residents that broken things can be precious too. "Ready to start over?" Victoria asked softly. I handed her the mug, watching her place it carefully on the shelf where it had always belonged. "No," I said, ready to move forward, because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's letting go of the person you became while hurting, and building something beautiful from the wreckage. Something like hope,